What's up, friends? This is your host, Ned Shout. Thanks for listening to the Benefits Influencer podcast. I want to introduce you to Hunter, my automated sales assistant. While I was managing an unprecedented season of Q4 renewals, Hunter quadrupled my sales pipeline. He can help you multiply your sales pipeline too. Head over to agencyleverage.com/pipeline to learn more.
This is Benefits Influencer. Each episode, we hear from the leaders who are impacting, innovating, and elevating employee benefits and HR. If you're looking for actionable insights for your business or your clients, you'll find them here. Here is your host, Ned Shout.
Welcome to the Benefits Influencer podcast. I've been looking forward to talking with Tom Avery from Innovative Broker Services and Signal Sync. Tom, how are you today?
Awesome. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward to talk benefits with you. The conversation has been intriguing to me because you have both built a successful benefits agency as well as create a tool, so a secondary business that is for brokers themselves. So, I think a lot of us brokers, we've been in the business for a while. We might see some things in our day in, day out that we think, hey man, I could provide a great solution for that, but I couldn't provide a solution for my competitors. Maybe that's a little bit small thinking. So I'd love to hear about your agency first, like what makes you different, how long you've been doing it, and then talk about running an agency with also a tool that you provide for other brokers.
Yeah. So Innovative Broker Services, started in 2005.
Okay.
So 16 years now in Northern California, right? Folsom in particular. And, we really say that we're a boutique agency, and that means lots of things to different people. But the way I describe it is like we don't take anything off the shelf. So we literally try to customize the experience based on what the client needs and try to be, and I know this sounds kind of silly, but try to bring innovation into the conversation a little bit. I mean, it is our name.
Right.
But we do that maybe in a little bit of a different way, because I believe that if you can build processes around renewal and the process that you go through to even, present options at renewal and what open enrollment looks like, right? And what that should look like, what the feedback loops are and those kind of things, what the onboarding process is with clients. And if you do focus your agency or your workflows around process, it allows you to provide more personal service.
Right.
Because you're not just sitting there going, okay, well, now what do I do? Now what do I do? Well, now what do I do? And use automation to do those things that can be automated that don't require the personal touch, so that it frees you up to be able to do more personal things, right? Like have a one-on-one conversation with an employee that's a new hire that's struggling with their benefits, when they call. Whatever that may be. Remember, everybody's got their own, I'll call it thing. Right. But that's been our differentiator, I would say, in 15, 16 years. And it's all around consistency, providing a consistent process.
Okay. So on the innovation side and the kind of the boutique part, is that more on the processes and workflows, or is that more, is that look the same for every client? And then you're talking more the product side, or I guess the experience, So I guess there's three spots that innovation could show up. And when I say innovation, it's almost like to do processes and workflows for every client that are similar. That's innovation right there, because you're creating an opportunity to have those conversations which matter, because we provide healthcare to people, right? So when you think about the innovation, is it more in product or the boutique? Like, where does that show up?
It's really in everything. And I know that sounds like I'm not answering the question, but the reality of it is that every client is different. So I say innovate. What I really mean, right? I mean, innovate can be like bringing, a level funded product to a fully insured client. I mean, that could be innovative in itself. Okay, now listen, is that innovative for our industry perspective? Not really, but from the client, it can be.
Right.
It could be, integrating an HRS system. It could be, it could be providing a different onboarding experience, right? It can be lots of things, and we use it in all aspects of our business.
Right. But if you're creating a process and you want to be able to scale, are you allowing your client to dictate, oh, well, I want to do it, the onboarding this way? I mean, I guess what kind of guidelines you give to an extent? Because if you're going to create processes, you want to show up knowing the way that you want to present it. You know what I mean?
Yep. So here's the reality of it, is that this has just been our experience, right? Our experience is if you come in and remember, I'm going to sound like we're coming in and dictating, but we're absolutely not doing that whatsoever. What we do is we come in and explain what our process is. And then we discuss how that works for them, what they would like to change, whatever it is. Now, in most cases, the process that we recommend is better than what they've been currently doing. So they easily adapt it.
So it's more like you're giving them a guideline, but if we want to tweak, presentation of some of it, wording of some of it, you can make it feel customized, but you're still providing it in a system that works in your framework. So are you in a position where you've created certain processes, and if the people are like, we don't want to do it like that at all, would you still bring that client on, or would you say that we're not the right fit for you?
It depends, right? So it depends what it is, right? If it's a simple thing like, they don't want to do a benefit book, or they want to, whatever. I mean, something that just doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Okay, fine. I don't really care. But it depends, if they are demanding that we, as an example, like go out to bid at, 100 different, this is an extreme example, but like 100 different carriers every single year, right?
Yeah.
Totally inefficient, because they're going to get the same results. But the reality of it is, here's what I found. This is what's ironic about it is, remember, I've always been, and I would say this is one of my personal keys to success. Now, listen, success is however you define it, but I always like to tell the backstory, right? Why are we here? Like, if the great one is like, how do we determine rates, right? Nobody talks about how rates are determined, but Ed, you probably do. But I mean, I talk about it every single time. Because the reality of it is people think that we can magically change rates. And the reality of it is we can't.
Right. We can't do much with the rates.
Right? And it's really another problem, right? It's a problem of like maybe their demographics or their geographics, or just, they've hired people that are sick, or dependents that all of a sudden get sick. And, it's all these other things that the employer can't control and we can't control.
Right.
Right. So remember, you got to put it in context. I think that's the key thing, is always think about, I think sometimes we assume too much, right? We assume that somebody's on this path and we're with them, or they're with us. And the reality of it is they're not, right? And so the last thing I'll mention is that even if, I say we customize everything, but it's around process, right? So those seem to be in conflict with each other. The reality of it is they're not. Because 80 to 90% of process is all our process, right?
Right.
It's all the stuff we do internally to get them prepared to be able to then execute, right? Make a decision for renewal or open enrollment or whatever that may be. So even if I do have to tweak it, right, or even substantially not do it, remember, I'm not throwing away I'm not throwing 80 or 90% away. I'm only taking 5 or 10%. So an efficient agency is run like on the 80-20 rule, right? We always know that. But the reality of it is that most of that can be internally focused, right? So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I am not reinventing the wheel hardly ever. I will make tweaks.
Okay. So what you just leaned into, I think, is the most critical piece that brokers need to hear. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. One, don't be a lazy broker, right? So don't be lazy and just show up and get the BOR and let them have crappy processes. not just because of them, but also for you. You said have an efficient agency. And so like, as you're talking about innovation, and it's like, oh, how do I be innovative for every client? It's almost like if I went to go get a pair of Vans shoes, they're the same shoes, but I could customize the colors. I could customize the combination.
But they're
so
still
the
shoes.
User, they're still the exact same shoes, but I got to have a little say in how they look. They're part of my identity. So I think brokers, and what you have done is you've created the process and the framework so that, one, your company can be efficient so that you can grow, but then also because you're walking into usually chaos, right? If somebody doesn't have a good broker, it's like really all shenanigans. They talk to the carrier, they talk to us, they don't know they're faxing stuff still, like what the heck? And so then you come in with let's come alongside and see what's important to you. And like 80% of the stuff we know they're going to say, but they have the conviction if they say it. And then you've created a process which you know works, but you can tweak it to meet their customization needs in a sense. But so is that kind of on track?
And the key thing is you don't tell the client what to do, right? You just express what the options are, right?
Right.
And let them make a decision and give them the options you can live with. You can live with, I can live with, my agency can live with, right? And guess what? They're gonna choose one of those 99% of the time.
Right. So then, are you selling a product, or are you selling an experience? And
an experience.
You're selling an experience.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, right? If we're selling a product, right, then I'm in this rate game, which I can't win, right? Right. I can't win that game.
Right. And then you're not different. It's not like, hey, I sell so much of this carrier, so I can get 5% lower than the guy you're talking to. I mean, for the most part, that doesn't exist. Right.
I mean, listen, here's what I've always said. And listen, everybody's got a different experience of this, but I always say, listen, if I can win on product or I can lose on product, that means I haven't been doing my job. Right.
Okay.
So, right. Because that's the reality of it is that, remember, especially in the benefit space, I mean, we're not talking about property and casualty, which is a different animal, but in the benefit space, right, we all have, in theory, access to all the products at the same price, right? Now, I know there's differences, like people can tweak commissions and all that kind of stuff, but generally speaking, right, it's just a question of whether or not, like, for example, in a large group, maybe you go to Roundstone, who's a captive, right? And using that as an example, right?
Right.
But it's whether or not I knew to go to Roundstone because that was maybe a good solution for somebody, right? But see, here's the key thing. If you have processes in place, it frees you up to not be thinking about all those things that you have to do along the way, so that you can be innovative, so you can be focusing on those things that are creative. You can be listening to the client and delivering the solution instead of going, well, crap, where is that in my renewal or whatever it is,
right.
whatever that issue is, right? It's like practicing, like for anything that we do, right? Golfers, great example. Golfers, they hit so many damn golf balls, right? And then they go out and they hit the perfect shot. It wasn't because they went out and hit the perfect shot. It was because they've been practicing forever the same thing, right?
I think that's a good point.
So when they get in the pressure, right, the ones that are really good, when they get under the pressure, they can figure out how to, like, instead of them thinking about, oh my God, what shot am I going to hit now, right? They're thinking about, how do I breathe? How do I, what's
because they have a process.
Here?
They're not working in chaos.
Right. They're not, right? So I'm going to give you one example that I hope people will steal from me, okay? And I say it that way because it's true. I do benefit books for all my customers, every single one of them, every single time, okay? Now, why? That's the question, why? The reason is because it's a process for me. It's a standard of education, right? That when I go or any of my team goes and does something, they know what they're looking at. They don't have to go find stuff, right? They've seen it so many times. They've built it so many times that they're not out there trying to reinvent the wheel. And what does that do is it allows us to be more productive. If we're more productive, we can bring on more clients, right? We can be more efficient. We can be a better boutique agency.
Yeah.
We could, you know, it, and that's where people, I think, lose it a little bit as an agency owners. We don't think through like, okay, what's the ramifications if we don't do something, right? If we don't standardize our processes, you know, then what's the ramification, right? So listen, and by the way, nobody's perfect at this. I'm not perfect at this by any stretch. I'm just willing. The only thing that I've done that's differently is I'm willing to say, screw it, stop. I'm doing it differently. Okay, because I don't like what's going on. I want to change it. That's the only thing that I'm doing that's different.
So what do you when you say you don't like what's going on? What do you mean?
Well, like for example, a while ago, and I know I'll make this kind of quick. I was trying to make a decision on what eligibility system to use for my agency. Okay. We ended up using Ease. Okay. But it took me almost 3 years to make that decision. Okay. And then it was tied around, okay, an agency management decision and all this kind of stuff. Well, the reality of it is that I finally ended up deciding, screw it. I'm using Ease, period. And I'm getting rid of the agency management system that I was using, and I'm going to see what I'm missing. Because every time I talk to somebody in my own team or somebody else, they're like, oh, well, you know, have you considered this? Have you considered that? You know, all that stuff. And what happens, your brain gets filled up with this mush, you know, of too much information. Yeah. And so I finally just said, you know what? Ease is a good decision. Let's do it. And then let's get rid of the AMS, and then we're going to see what happens. If we fall flat on our face, then we know it's a problem, right? If we don't, then so be it, right? And that's what we did. And ironically, for like the next 9 months, we didn't miss the agency management system at all. At all.
So that was just a time suck then.
It was just a time suck. So that was, you know, and that's one of those things that you kind of learn. And I do think that agencies and agency owners, we get, you know, we're trying to make the right decision and we're trying to make the perfect decision. The perfect decision doesn't exist.
Right. There's too many options.
It doesn't exist. So listen, it's all about incremental improvement, right? Incremental improvement. And yeah, you would want to hit a home run or a grand slam. But listen, if I can get 10% improvement here, 10% improvement here, 10% improvement here, right, on just 3 different processes, that's 30%. That's huge, you know, especially if you're on scale in an agency, right? You got hundreds of clients. I mean, that could mean a material amount of productivity.
So 2 questions then. One, how do you make decisions? Let's start with that question. So how do you process and make a decision if there's too many options, you don't have enough information?
I usually do it in reverse. I say, what's the ramification of making a bad decision? Okay. So like if I implemented this, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And then I work backwards. Okay. I learned that a long time ago, that's a more efficient way for me personally to deal with the too many options, you know, situation.
Got it. Okay. And then next question is, if someone's sitting there going, okay, yeah, I work in chaos all the time and, you know, I don't know where all my information is. And when I'm looking for something, it takes me forever. And we don't do terminations, new hires and this, that, and the other the same every single time. We just kind of take them as they come. Where would you tell somebody to start with the processes? And then the second piece to that is, how do you have your team actually implement it and not just stick with old ways?
So that is absolutely an awesome question, and I appreciate you asking it. So here's the bottom line. It is as simple as you have to start. Okay. Yeah. You have to get off the stick, make a decision and start. And then do it in 10% increments. Okay. It's the 10% rule. That's been my version of how to take chaotic situations into simple processes. Is don't try to do 100% right away. Don't transition like don't say, okay, I'm going to implement something new, right? I mean, it depends what it is, but let's say it's a big decision, like you're going to,
Yeah.
change your agency management system. Give yourself 18 months to get it done. Just take the renewals as they come up and put them into the new process, right? Every
Yep.
time
Yep.
you pick something up, right? Put it into the new process. Don't put it into the old process. Okay. And what you're doing is you're making incremental improvement with the goal in mind, right? And it is much more effective because now you've taken you're not trying to say, listen, I'm trying to go from chaotic to no chaos, which is impossible to do. What
Right.
you're doing is you're saying, listen, over time, I'm going to take my process from chaotic to less chaotic. Okay, so now the last thing is, how do we get our team involved, right? And how do we get buy-in?
Right.
You just have to explain it to them and continue to reinforce it in, weekly meetings or how often you do it. And you've got to celebrate wins. And you've got to do it in the small increments. Say, hey, listen, we're going to do 3 clients this week. Let's say you're making a transition, right?
Yeah.
3. Just do 3. We're going to start with 3. You tell me which ones they are. And next week we're going to celebrate them. Because then people feel like it's, they're making progress, right? We didn't get in, like I always use the analogy of being overweight, right? We didn't get into the overweight situation in one day. Why can we all of a sudden take a pill and it be gone, right? It takes time.
Yeah. 2 things you made me think of. One is, I heard this guy share this. It wasn't about employee benefits, but it was about creating playbooks for your businesses. So processes and workflows, right? And so every day set aside a half an hour for him and each person on his team to go into a Google shared doc. What did you do today? And then they started, oh, well, when this happened, then this happened. So then before you know it, it's like, this is how, let's just take a termination. Okay, well then if you've all done that, for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you've got all the pieces. This is how we handle it for all these carriers. And then before you know it, you have a playbook. And then when you hire a new team member, you're like, here's the steps, right? And I know, one guy said, if there's a breakdown in the workflow or the process, it's my fault because I missed the box. As long as you checked every single one in order, then it's on me because I didn't have that in there. So I thought that was really helpful with the playbooks.
Awesome. That's awesome feedback. Definitely very productive use of time and energy, right?
Yeah, it's just hard to set aside that half an hour, but you just got to do it. Like you said, start.
You got to start, right? And you have to give yourself a little bit of grace, okay? And I know people aren't comfortable with that. But the reality of it is that you do have to give yourself some grace of falling off the wagon sometimes, because the reality of it is that, things happen sometimes, but you do have to be consistent with it, right? You do have to be consistent with it. You have to give it enough chance for it to succeed, right? Yeah. That's what I always say is like, say, are we ready to stop, right? Is this broke? Or like, are we not improving it? And it's like, have we given it enough chance to succeed? That's the question you need to ask your team, in my opinion, right? In my experience, it works for me. It's worked for me. I hope it will work for somebody else. Is like, have you given it enough time for it to succeed? Because if you haven't, then you need to keep doing it.
Yeah. You have to dedicate yourself to it. So I want to shift gears a little bit, just towards the end of our conversation here is, you've been in the business, you started your agency 16 years ago or so. And you saw a hole in the market. So, as a benefits broker, agent, you decided I'm also going to create another business, which also helps my competitors. So talk to me a little bit about that process. Tell us about the product, but more I want to hear, okay, I'm staying in this business. I'm creating something for my competitors, but that's definitely an abundant mindset. And I just want to hear the process. And then as us brokers who are in the game every day do see holes, should we consider creating tools that help support each other?
My mindset is about abundance, okay? But that did not come from 16 years ago. It didn't start 16 years ago. When I first started Innovative, right? I mean, like we all did, I just needed to get revenue, right? And, just did everything I can, right? And so, So if they fog the mirror, there we are, right? Yep, we'll do it for you, right? So, but our industry is very much it can give us a lot of opportunity to take if you are a person that wants to give back, you can do it as maybe you mature into the industry, right? So let me talk a little bit about that process. And what had happened was so what was funny, I used that ease example, and I got rid of an AMS, and I found, I said that, I wanted to see what was going to happen. Well, the reality was the first 9 months or so, right, I didn't really have any major issues, but then they started creeping up. So then what I did was I said, okay, well, let me see if I can solve those problems with current technology solutions. Well, the reality of it is that I didn't find them. Okay. So here's the other thing about technology. And this is a concept that people are going to have a hard time just, distilling it down into like a 30-second soundbite is going to be difficult in some ways. But remember, every single time you touch something, if it's in a different system, it's a different process or whatever, it's costing you time. Period.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You have to make a conscious decision of whether or not you're going to continue to dedicate that time or not. Right. So what I found was there was things that we did in my agency that were repeated things we did repeatedly, and they were inefficient. Okay. So like we do wrap docs for all of our clients, and we do benefit books for all our clients. I talked about that. We had to pay out commissions to people. We had service issues. We had tasks. We had all these things, right? Well, what I found was I could purchase all these individual solutions in silos, but I was duplicate data entry or
they weren't talking to each other.
They weren't talking to each other, which was costing me productivity.
Right.
So what I did was I went out and hired some developers. I ended up interviewing and hiring some developers to develop a tool for my agency to use to solve some of those gaps. Right.
Got it.
Then after I got that going, right, and I was working for my own agency, I started talking to other people I knew in the industry about the tool, right? And people started saying, hey, well, can I get access to it? So I did have this in mind a little bit. Okay, so I didn't build it like I did build it with some intention of maybe doing something like this.
But you built a tool for yourself that you knew would work. And that once it worked for you, then all of a sudden people are hearing this is a tool that would work for me. Because sometimes I look at tools and I'm like, a broker didn't have anything to do with this tool. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
And when I've seen Signal Sync, I go, this was made for a broker.
Right. Yeah, it was. And by the way, we're using it every single day. And by the way, there's a bunch of people out there that are brokers. I'll say it that way, a little bit in air quotes, but they're not current brokers. They haven't run an agency in 2020, 2021.
Right.
They ran an agency in 1990, and it's like things are different. Now listen, it's always different. Okay. My point though is that, we're using the tool ourselves. So we're always, most of the time, right, the problem that ends up getting presented to us by somebody else, we've already recognized it and either have already built something for it or in the process of building something to solve that. So the long short of it is then it ended up becoming Signal Sync, right? And so, at its core, we're an agency management system. We call it an agency engine. And the key thing is that the problem we're also trying to solve, right, and we're well on the way of doing it, is a connected solution, right? So our tagline is simply connected. And so like we have integrations in the HubSpot. Okay, now why is that important? Listen, I don't know. Okay, listen, everybody's got their own thing, right? The thing that they like the best. But no agency management system, and this isn't a criticism, can do sales and marketing as good as HubSpot. Okay, meaning from a technology perspective, right? So we had to make a decision of whether or not we were going to build all the stuff that HubSpot has, and I say that a little bit, in air quotes, or just connect with them.
Yeah. Right. And that's the thing, is you could connect with so many tools these days that you create the piece that can support in the way you want.
Yep. The hub, and so there's a lot bigger conversation as it relates to, connectivity, and we call them syncs, but the reality of it is that is going to be the most important productivity gain that we're going to be able to get in our agency operations, is the connectivity into other systems, right?
Yeah.
So that we can eliminate duplicate data entry 100%, right? And that we can automate some of those manual processes. Like, for example, I'll just throw this out. December 27th of 2021. Do you know what happens then?
No.
Okay, so real quick, it's the transparency law, and we're going to have to start disclosing to our clients how much commission we make.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking you were talking about something with technology or something like that. Yeah, I know, it's huge.
You knew about it. I was leading you astray. So sorry about that. I was doing it for fun. But but the reality of it is like, listen, if you've got hundreds of clients, how are you going to implement that?
Right.
I mean, how are you? And are you going to be able to do it efficiently? It's fourth quarter, remember, right? So that's the thing, is like, so stewardship reports, or the ability to do that I think is a key thing that agencies are going to need to be able to do, because remember, the compensation has to be around this conversation about what you do for them.
Right.
Or else it's going to be really odd. Oh, well, so you're getting 5% commission? What do you mean? That seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, like every month. Exactly. Yeah.
Every month? I haven't talked to you in 6 months. Right?
Or 6 years. I've gotten a group recently, and they haven't talked to their broker in 5 years. So you look at this and go, so I think just as we're running out of time here, there's so much here that my hope is that a broker who's listening to this right now doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I've just been doing it without a thought. Just pause and create some space in your calendar to start thinking through this. Like, how are you meeting the needs of your clients? Create some values around it, and then just go to work on what are you doing and how are you doing it, and be willing to question, do I want to continue to do it this way? And that's what I'm hearing from you, is you do that on a regular basis to make sure you're providing actual. And that's what I would say when I think innovative now. Innovation is looking at the status quo and asking myself, should I do it differently? And then taking those small incremental steps is what you've done with your agency to do that. And, you look at over 16 years, it's like, well, you have a whole product you had developers make now by asking yourself those simple questions and making that 10% tweak. So kudos to you. And I hope we can all do that, because then the other thing is we're all pushing ourselves and the industry to be better. And when you look at our industry, and some carriers will still only take termination or changes through fax, that is mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling, but listen, we can't change it. We want to change it, and it will change.
But if we push for it and we change ourselves, then it will.
Right, exactly. But between now and then, right, even if it's next week, I still have to process that termination. So I'm still going to have to do it their way. Okay. And listen, that's been a key learning over the years. It's like, listen, don't try to push mud up a hill. Don't try to solve what's unsolvable, right? You cannot convince the carrier today to do something that they don't want to do. You might be able to tomorrow, or the next day, or a week, or a month, or the industry might solve it. Okay, that's fine. But today, right, if I've got a termination, great example, I'm going to have to fax the damn thing. Okay. And do not spend any more time on it than what it deserves, which is fax the damn thing. Okay. Get it off your plate, move on, and fight for another day, right? Do not spend that energy on it. So, And that's the key thing, right? I'll mention one thing, and there's this, and this, right? This old hashtag hack, right? Hack, growth hack, productivity hack, whatever, right? I'm using social media kind of terminology here. Maybe it's new to some people, but listen, don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. Listen to people like Ned and people in our industry that are willing to share and are willing to tell you. And listen, nobody's telling you how to do it. What they are saying is that's how we did it.
Mm-hmm. And then you take that and do it your way.
Do it your way, or do it their way too.
Or copy it. Yeah. Don't feel bad.
Or copy it. Listen, most of these ideas, right? Not copying, but taking from someone else.
For sure, you're learning from others. You're choosing to learn from others and implement it. Yeah, you and I could go on and on. I love this. Where could people learn more about you, Signal Sync, your agency? Tell us where people could find you.
Sure. Yeah. So online, of course, innovativebroker.com. So that's my agency.
Okay.
Signal Sync is signal-sync.com. Of course, LinkedIn is very similar kind of, similar kind of naming convention, right?
You're going to be speaking at the Benefits Pro down in San Diego in a couple of weeks, so they can also find you at events like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very active on LinkedIn. And of course, right, send me an email. Listen, I love sharing. This is about education. We're not competitors, okay? If you do your job, I'm not a competitor to you. You're not a competitor to me either.
I love that. That's great.
We lose or win because really it's how well we do our job. Okay. So listen, we're not competitors. I don't think we're competitors. I think we have an industry problems that we can help solve for each other. So of course, email me, tom.avery@innovativebroker.com or tom@signalsync.com. You can find how to get a hold of me, pick up the phone, call me. Happy to help.
Awesome. Tom, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and your hacks to help us be better at the way that we serve people.
Yep, for sure.
All right, Tom. Until next time.
Thank you.
What's up, friends? This is your host, Ned Shout. Thanks for listening to the Benefits Influencer podcast. I want to introduce you to Hunter, my automated sales assistant. While I was managing an unprecedented season of Q4 renewals, Hunter quadrupled my sales pipeline. He can help you multiply your sales pipeline too. Head over to agencyleverage.com/pipeline to learn more.